Good day to all of you. Today we will be working on the 76th creation in our lesson series. First, click on the plus mark at the top of the screen and open a new tab. Next, type thunkable.com in the address bar and click the enter button. Now you have entered the Thunkable website. Click the login button at the top corner and log into your Thunkable account. Now again, click on the plus mark at the top corner of the screen, open another tab and visit the dpcode.lk website. Click on lesson number 278. Click the start project button here. Now you have entered the project. Today we are going to create a superhero app using Thunkable website. I think you will like this design very much. First, let's design this app as required. Click the rename button in front of screen 1 in the properties section of the screen called screen 1 and rename this screen as screen options. I will type screen options here. Next, let's change the background color of this screen. I will click on the box below the background color in properties and type the code related to the color I want in this box. Here I type #B375E6. Okay. Now I need to add a label to this screen. In Add Components, I will drag a label from under the user interface into the screen like this. Now select this label and change the properties of the label as required. First, click the rename button in front of label 1 and change the name of the label to label title. I will type label title here. Next, let's give the text of the label as click on a superhero. Give the font size as 22. Also, click on the box below font weight and give bold for font weight. Select green color for the font color. Okay. Next, we need to add two images below this label. Let's drag an image under image in Add Components into the screen like this. Add another image in the same way. Now these two images are added above the label, right? Let's remove it from here and drag it below the label. I will drag the next image also down like this. Okay. Now let's rename this first image as image sh mail. I will click the rename button and give the name as image sh mail. Next, for the picture here, let's select the superhero mail.png image. Give the picture resize mode as center. In the same way, let's rename the next image as image sh female. I will click the rename button and give the name as image sh female. Next, for the picture, let's select the superhero female.png image. Give the picture resize mode as center. Okay. Next, we need to add a row below these two images. I will drag a row from under layout in Add Components into the screen like this. This row has got added at the top of the screen. Let's drag the row down like this. Now click the rename button here and rename this row as row name. Next, you need to add a label and a text input to this row. First, I will drag a text input from the user interface in Add Components into the row name like this. Click on the rename button and rename the text input as text input name. Again, in the Add Components, under the user interface, I will drag a label into the row name in the same way. Click the rename button and rename the label as sh name. Okay. Here, the superhero name is given as the text. Let's change the height and width of this label as fit contents. Now we are done designing the row name. Since this row is hidden at the beginning, let's select the row name again and make it visible false here. Okay. Now we need to add another row below this row. As before, in Add Components, a row under layout is dragged into the screen like this. This row has got added at the top of the screen. Let's drag it below row name like this. Whenever you drag a component down or up in this way, keep the rest of the components on the screen hidden. Then we can easily change the location of the component. Now click the rename button here and rename this row as row gender. The horizontal alignment of the row is changed to space around. Next, you need to add two labels to this row. For this, I will drag a label under user interface in Add Components into the row gender like this. Once again, I will drag a label from user interface in Add Components into the row gender. Click the rename button and rename the first label as label gender. Okay. Here, the text is given as gender. Now select the next label and rename it as label message. I will remove the text of this label. Okay, now we are done with designing the row gender. Next, let's add a row to the screen. I will drag a row from under layouts in add components into the screen like this. This row has got added on the top of the screen. Let's drag the row gender down like this. Now click the rename button here and rename this row as row change screen. Change the horizontal alignment of the row to space around. Next, you need to add two buttons to this row. For this, I will drag a button from under user interface in add components into the row change screen like this. Once again, I will drag a button from user interface in add components into the row change screen. Click the rename button and rename the first button as button final. Okay. Here, give the text as final. Let's make this button as visible false. Now select the next button and rename it as button proceed. I will give the text of this button as proceed and make the button as visible false. Okay, now we have completely finished designing the screen options. Next is the second screen, that is to design the work screen. I will click on the plus mark in front of screen options and select blank screen from here. Now click next. Click the rename button in front of screen 1 in the properties section of this screen and rename this screen as work screen. I will type work screen here. Next, let's change the background color of this screen. I click on the box below the background color in properties and relate it to the color I want in this box. Here I will type #B375E6. Okay, first let's add two columns to this screen. I will drag a column under layout in add components into the screen like this. This way I will drag a column back into the screen. The second column has not got added to the screen but into the first column. Let's remove this column from here and drag it into the screen. Okay, now let's go back to the first column. First, I will add a row to this column. This way, you can drag a row from layout in add components into the column. In this row, let's give the height as absolute size and give the value as 100. Okay. Now let's add a label to this row. I will drag a label under user interface in add components into this column. Let's give the text here as select 1. Also change the font size to 25. Okay. We need to add another row below this row. I will drag a row under layout in add components into the screen like this. This row has got added below the row we added earlier. I will drag this row down like this. Let's give the absolute size for the height of this row and give the value as 100. Next, you need to add two buttons and a label to this row. For this, I will drag a button under user interface in add components into the row like this. Once again, I will drag a label under user interface in the add components like this. I will drag another button in this manner. Okay. Now the components we have added are displayed like this. Now let's select the first button here. Now click on this rename button and rename it as button strength. Okay. Give the text here as strength. For the background color of the button, select green color. Now select the next label and type O for the text. Now it's the last button. Select this button and click the rename button here. Give the text here as agility. For the background color of the button, select green color. Okay. Let's add two more rows to this column. Just like we added rows earlier, drag a row under layout in add components into the column this way. Once again, in the same way, drag another row into the column. Now see if these two rows have been added as required. No, right? The second row has got added into the first row. Also, these rows have got added at the top of the screen. The second row has got added into the first row. Also, these rows have got added at the top of the screen. Let's take this second row away from the first row like this and drag it into the screen. Now, drag these two rows to the bottom of the column like this. Here, I have dragged one row. In the same way, let's drag the other row also down. Okay, now let's click on the first row of these two rows and add the necessary components to it. First, I need to add two labels to this row. For this, I will drag a label from user interface in add components into the row like this. Once again, I will drag a label under user interface in add components into the row. Now let's select the first label. Click the rename button here and rename it as label abilities. Okay, remove the text here. Now select the next label. Click the rename button in properties and rename it as label power. I will remove the text in this label as well. Okay. Now let's go to the next row. I want to add 2 rating components to this row. This way, let's drag a rating component under user interface in add components into this row. Once again, drag another rating component into the row. Okay, let's select the first rating component and prepare properties as required. Click the rename button and rename this component as rating strength. Next, give the value as 0 and select 5 as the count. In the same way, select the next rating component, click the rename button and rename it as rating agility. Here too, the value is given as 0 and the count as 5. Okay, we have now completely designed this column. Let's go to the second column. First, I will set the vertical alignment of the column as space around. Okay, now let's drag an image into this column from image in add components. Now as the picture of this image, select water.jpeg for both height and width. Let's give absolute size and set it as 70. Let's add another image below this image. As before, drag an image from image in add components into this column. This image has got added above the image that we added at first. From the box showing these components, let's drag the image down like this. Okay, now select fire.jpeg image as the picture in this image. Also, from the size settings, select absolute size for the height and give the value as 70. In the same way, for the width, select absolute size and give the value as 70. Okay, now we have finished adding 2 images. You need to add one more image. Let's drag an image under image in add components into this column. This image got added above the image we added first. Let's drag the image down like this from the box showing these components. Okay, now let's select electric.jpeg image as the picture in this image. Also, from the size settings as before, select absolute size for the height and give the value as 70. In the same way, select absolute size as width and give the value as 70. Now we have finished designing the second column as well. Next, you need to add a button below this column. For this, I will drag the button from under user interface in add components into the screen like this. Now look, this button has got added to the second column. First of all, let's drag the button up from the column in the box that shows components and remove it from this column. Now click on the arrow in front of the column, minimize the column and drag the button below the column like this. Okay, click the rename button from properties here and rename it as button finder. Next, give the text here as finder, and in the button, let's select green color as the background color. Next, we have to add the third screen. I will click on this plus mark and select blank screen from here. Now click on next. Click the rename button in front of screen 1 in the properties section of this screen and rename this screen as the final screen. I will type here as final screen. Okay. Now we have almost finished designing 2 screens in this app. Next, we have to add an alert. I will drag an alert displayed under user interface in add components into the screen like this. Now you can see that in the component box under invisible components, the alert component that we have added is displayed. Here in properties, give the title as alert. Also, let's give enter data as the message. You may have seen that some of the components we added were not renamed. Here, I renamed only the components required for the code. Okay. Next, look at the section that says files here under invisible components. Here, in addition to the pictures, we have 2 GIF images as preloader male.gif and preloader female.gif. Okay. Now we have completely designed the 2 screens required for the first part of this app. Let's go to each of these screens and click the live test button and see how these screens are displayed. If you designed it like this, you are successful. WhatsApp your design to me on the phone number 07681252244. Tell your friends about the design. Check out this app to send to me as well as to your friends. And one more thing, join the DP Coding School Telegram group. Try to be the DP Code champ best of the week every week. Stay connected with us. Also another thing, join our DP Coding Club. And now you can start a DP Coding Club in your school. We are ready to give all the guidance for that. If you are interested in starting DP Coding Clubs in any school that has computer labs, please send a request to the principal to the email address info@dpcc.lk. Okay, let's meet with another interesting lesson through DP Coding School. Have a good day.